This project is about the coastal development of a rapidly changing city, Lima. Our research focuses on what and how discourses, motivations, and processes are shaping its coastal development. Processes of socio-ecological change are inherently linked to unequal distribution of benefits and burdens, creating winners and losers throughout time and space. Therefore, we specifically investigate how practices create injustices while discourses reproduce them, and highlight potential strategies for positive transformation. For the purpose of our analysis, we will first set the geostrategic context of Lima, allowing us to explore the produced injustices and their causes in our case study areas along the coast. Lima is strategically placed as a regional economic and political center, with access to emerging markets in Asia and connections to global markets through the Pan-American Economic Corridor. Lima's development parallels the too often accepted path of economic development, relying on neoliberalism as the accelerating force for its vision to become a world city. This leads to government strategy towards opening up Lima to international markets and finance. Decisions are based around economic motivations, promoting foreign and private investments and interests, resulting in the deregulation of sectors. Consequently, this allows for disparate megaprojects to be the main force shaping Lima's development. Peru's export-driven economy, with Lima as its center, facilitates the flow of millions of dollars into the city, especially through the financing of megaprojects, focusing on infrastructure, waste management upgrade, and coastline redevelopment.
Business is to build. It doesn't matter what.
However, Lima's authorities lack a holistic vision of the city. While some plans for urban development exist in paper, the absence of an urban development master plan demonstrates the limits of this governance system.
Lima has no plan, but the mega projects are configuring that.
The complex network of public agencies and the different level of public authorities running the city are another factor of complexity, especially since dialogue and communication seem weak. As a result, social exclusion and spatial fragmentation prevent any integrated development for the city as a whole. Moreover, prevalent environmental discourses within Lima provide a convenient frame for the development of these megaprojects. Lima's paradoxical relationship with water displays a fragmented water system and reveals particular discourses on water that shape environmental management. This is mainly understood through the presumption of a limitless environment and the belief that nature will take care of itself.
Treatments. We have the nature and I go with the nature. Can the nature assume this fact? Yes, the nature.
Therefore, environmental concerns are not amongst the highest priority and tend to generate reaction only when public authorities and residents are directly affected. This pattern leads to the creation of socio-environmental injustices and their displacement instead of addressing them in institutional and everyday practices.
With a lot of private sector, and when you really see like the commercial interests that are behind, like really that's what drives the world. And like in waste in particular, it's not interesting for waste disposal companies for there to be recycling programs. There's a lot of money involved in garbage and receiving garbage. There's a lot of corruptions in municipalities with fees for that garbage. So
the development of Lima's coast displays this process through the positioning of megaprojects and waste flows. In this status quo situation, the unequal distribution of megaprojects and waste flows reflects a spatio-temporal maldistribution of benefits and burdens, reinforcing the contamination of Callao's coast and threatening citizens' livelihood and environment. Moreover, NIMBYism and corruption play as underlying driving forces to the development of the city. The lack of opportunities for participation in the decision-making process result from and reinforces the synergy between neoliberalism, public policies, and citizens' perception of both built and natural environment.
Es que una falta de visión de esto y no tenemos una cultura ambiental. ¿Sí?
Cultura
ambiental. Agarras tu papel, comes algo y lo tiras a la vía pública. No te importa, no interesa, no hay tomar una gaseosa por el carro, agarras la botella y lo tiras. Va a la vía. Bueno. No hay respeto a la ciudad.
Sí, claro. Es una falta de educación.
Falta de educación ambiental, falta de todo un tema que tiene que ver con la cultura.
Estos elementos hacen de que el mercurio o otros elementos muy pesados lo precipiten.
Ah, bueno, entonces se quedan ya al fondo del mar, ¿no?
Así es, sí.
Y no perjudican el pescado, por ejemplo, que nosotros comemos
en
y tal.
absoluto, no, para nada.
Ah, bueno.
Our project seeks to analyze the socio-environmental changes that follow the development of Lima's coast, and to uncover the ways in which this uneven development creates injustices. According to the current process of Lima's development, we hypothesize that the power relations that influence the decision-making process support several layers of economic motivations that outweigh environmental concerns. Therefore, environmental management is shaped around economic interest, which leads to the displacement of environmental injustices to areas of least economic benefit. This translates to unsustainable and unjust institutional and everyday practices. The prevailing hegemonic discourses impose megaprojects as the main path for the city development. Overrepresented in the political space, they foreclose envisioning alternatives to conceive the city differently. The power relations in place instead reduce alternatives for positive and integrated transformation at a very localized and disconnected scale, greatly reducing their chances to address the socio-environmental injustices that are currently only displaced. Zooming in from Lima's geostrategic position and context, we're going to look at how the processes and discourses at play are manifested in and impact our case study areas, San Miguel, La Perla, and the northern districts of Callao. In the district of San Miguel, the collector Costanero pumped wastewater directly into the Pacific Ocean, causing severe environmental pollution. Inefficient maintenance due to lack of political will and funding led to its deterioration. The increase of environmental pollution triggered civic reaction, local demonstrations calling for the closure of the collector. However, only its collapse in 2008 propelled a state of emergency, caused by the detrimental environmental impacts of the flow of wastewater into the Pacific Ocean. Forced to resolve this environmental crisis, Sedapal and the authorities searched for a replacement solution.
Que cierren los colectores de Lima y del Callao porque no se puede seguir contaminando el mar, porque queremos playa y porque queremos vivir dignamente.
Since the closure of the collector brought forward the opportunity to expand the Costa Verde project to San Miguel district, Sedapal considered solutions further away along the coast.
El plan decía que era lo mejor quitarlo.
This reactionary way of dealing with the environment demonstrates a trend of displacing injustices instead of dealing with them. La Perla Collector, although it had been built years before, was optioned as the next location that would pump waste into the Pacific. While residents and the mayor of La Perla strongly contested the project, the main reason for not using the collector was to reserve the land for real estate development. The perspective of economic gain from the Costa Verde project, along with a strong NIMBY attitude of the people, determined the decision to divert the waste to the north as a solution to solve the wastewater crisis. That propelled the decision to move forward with the Taboada treatment plant, with a complementary treatment plant in the south in Lachira.
So it's like we don't want to have it in our backyard, but it has to be in someone's, it has to go to somebody's backyard.
Is that prevalent discourse in Lima?
Definitely, yeah. And I think especially more in the affluent areas, it's like, well, you know, if you go to San Isidro, Miraflores, it's all green and nice and luscious, but as soon as you go to a lower income neighborhood, like you'll see trash all over the streets, right?
Another explanation given by Sedapal promotes the geographical advantage of placing the treatment plant in La Taboada, this area being at the lowest elevation along Callao's coast, thus showing how technical expertise can conveniently justify political decisions. Because of its association with the extension of the Costa Verde project, La Perla holds more opportunity for investment, and therefore did not receive the negative development of a collector. Decisions about the environment are approached through the lenses of economic interests and result in injustices displaced to areas of least economic benefit. The placement of the treatment plant in Taboada confirms Callao's position as a location for Lima's supportive infrastructure. Along with the airport, port, and industrial factories, it leaves Callao with a double burden. First, having to sustain this new infrastructure, and second, the prevention of any positive development along this coast. While the Costa Verde project created conditions for potential positive transformation in La Perla, the consolidation of waste treatment infrastructure in the north weakened Callao's range of opportunity for development. This establishes geographies of hope and despair by displacing injustices to the extremities of the city, making environmental management inescapably political.
Reuse is
It's more complicated.
It's easy. It's a political decision and it's dangerous decision. Oh, we are going to reuse all the water. No. We have so much water from the Andes. If we want to trade this water under with high level of treatment, we need so much energy, so much inversion, so much. We need.
The construction of the treatment plant, which began in July 2010, was attributed to the Spanish company ACS after a non-transparent decision-making process. Despite Brazilian companies offering better treatment solution, the basic pre-treatment solution of ACS was chosen, raising concern over possible corruption. While currently functioning below capacity, Sedapal states that the plant is to be fully operational in June 2013.
Here the water is so contaminated, we cannot see about this distance. No, I don't see the hand, I see the hand.
While this provided an immediate solution to the threat along Lima's southern coast, the placement of the treatment plant in the north meant that the surrounding areas would now be negatively affected by the flow of wastewater into the ocean. Resistance from the fishing companies to the construction of the treatment plant prompted the Housing Ministry to compensate the fishing companies' owners by offering them land for potential investment in the coastal area of San Miguel.
This guy of the fish meal company saying no. I am also having a diversification of my business. Yeah, I also have a construction company. Where? In San Miguel? Oh, okay. San Miguel, construction company, fish meal. Okay, wait a minute. What's going on?
Due to its additional industrial activities, Callao's coast is nowadays extremely polluted, pushing its residents to travel all the way to Costa Verde during weekends or bank holidays. The addition of the treatment plant consolidates this situation, while demonstrating how supportive mega projects built in Callao deprive its residents from recreational development along its coast. The development of Lima illustrates a unique understanding of the environment in a perceived, conceived, or constructed way, where the vision of a competitive city, reinforced by neoliberalism, is coupled to a complex relationship to the ocean and to the water in general. This pattern results in the creation, reinforcement, and displacement of injustices, with environmental, socioeconomic, and political consequences, expressed unevenly in time and space, always at the disadvantage of the poorest. By examining how these processes and discourses translate into flows of public and private investment and of waste, it is clear that Lima is positioning its southern coast as a space of positive development, while its northern coast remains a dumping ground for waste infrastructure, trade points, and factories. The map displays the spatial consequences of these flows, and their directions reveal particular motivations of decision makers. The flows of foreign investment illustrate how the city development is driven by megaprojects, while the flow of public investment emphasizes the neoliberal vision of the city. As the Costa Verde extends, we can notice trends of public investment that finance its development, while trends of mainly international investment flow into real estate. On the other hand, the positioning of supportive industrial infrastructure in Callao, along with the flows of waste to the north, demonstrates the strong contrast between Lima's southern and northern coastal development, showing Callao as a place where positive development is hindered. In other words, if we look at Lima Metropolitan as a metabolism, where all elements are interdependent and interconnected, Callao would represent the sink area of the city, where all the flows of solid and liquid waste are received and dealt with. However, other processes at play suggest potential negative outcomes of the Costa Verde development, despite its support by the 6 municipality districts. We identified trends of gentrification in the districts along the coast, as they transition towards more commercial and high-income development. This is especially visible in San Miguel. Therefore, this shift in socioeconomic conditions could lead to a homogenization and a change in character of the coastal districts. While the developers of Costa Verde promote an overall improvement of living conditions, the low to middle income residents might be unable to access these benefits.
It's unfair. For example, those fishermen that used to be down in Miraflores that probably lost that livelihood. And the most likely is that they didn't find employment afterwards.
This mapping of flows allows us to identify a wide range of injustices displayed along two coasts. While we mapped their spatial dimension, our purpose is also to highlight their often intangible aspects. Although each injustice displays socio-political, socio-economic, and environmental layers, we intend to give representative examples for each one of these aspects. By making them visible, we intend to propose strategies that can address them. Although the Costa Verde project is presented as an opportunity to reunite Lima with the ocean, by creating public space for recreation, enjoyment of the beach, and to fulfill green space requirements set by the Ministry of Environment, it is apparent that the project has been increasingly geared to attract large private investments, in the form of hotels, restaurants, casinos, and others, which has led to a decrease in public space. This is predominantly caused by the tendency to rely solely on neoliberal tactics to city development, which emphasizes private-led development rather than reflecting the wider social interest of the community. The right to the city is deprived. Another negative effect of the Costa Verde development will include a drastic increase in land value and subsequently housing prices. Referring back to the example of San Miguel, real estate developers construct high-rise commercial buildings in low-income residential areas, benefiting higher-income residents and disadvantaging the economically vulnerable along the coast. Increases in land prices will most likely force current residents to leave. Viewing this momentum of infrastructure development as beneficial to the whole city is deeply flawed, as it creates an uneven landscape of benefits and burdens. It is obvious that this development is not neutral, but rather inherently determines winners and losers in relation to their socioeconomic position.
So money to finance the Costa Verde has to come from the increase of the earnings of selling the plots in the wherever the city's investment in infrastructure and wherever they are providing more access and more facilities, that land is going to increase their price, and poor people is going to be excluded of the possibility of continue to live there.
From here, there are insecurity, violence, problems. Here, that all begin Miraflores, all the people want to live close to Miraflores, to Surco, to San Isidro, to Barranco.
In San Miguel, the Costanera collector had been polluting the ocean with untreated waste for 40 years. The continuous pollution of both the ocean and the beach resulted in the spatial separation of residents from the ocean, manifested through a symbolic barrier of large buildings. This is further visible through the location of several disciplinary buildings situated directly on the ocean front, essentially disconnecting residents from the ocean. This translates into their lack of environmental awareness. However, their relationship to the ocean is taking a new direction, reconnecting them to the ocean through the extension of the Costa Verde and the closure of the collector. Also, the Taboada treatment plant is only pre-treating the wastewater and discharging it into the ocean under the belief that the ocean will treat the waste naturally via the Humboldt Current. Neoliberalism's constant externalization of environmental problems could be one explanation for this choice. In this context, the environment is treated as a sink for society's waste. The displacement of injustices perpetuates negative long-term impacts, which in turn accentuate injustices in a vicious cycle. This cycle also reinforces the social and spatial fragmentation of the city, feeding the disintegration process already at stake. The fragmented water metabolism leads to unsustainable development of the city. The Costa Verde project, along with other megaprojects promoting green public space, via Parque Rimac, for instance, requires increasing amounts of water. With the rise of water prices, municipalities have to find new resources, which might lead them to seek even further private investment and neoliberal solutions. Furthermore, the densification along the Costa Verde will lead to great increases in the amount of waste produced in those areas, adding further pressures on Callao's infrastructure to support Lima. While economic arguments prevail, the city appears blind to environmental risks. Prone to earthquakes and tsunamis, Lima also faces climate change issues of rising sea level, aggravated by its sinking trend. By putting these considerations aside, Lima appears particularly vulnerable and non-resilient. Moreover, the lowest income districts are the ones facing the highest level of risk. For instance, La Perla's geographical location places it in the direct path of projected tsunamis, inducing another layer of injustice on this area. The lack of awareness about these long-term impacts prevents positive change. Regarding wastewater management, the worst-case scenario could lead to another environmental crisis, such as the one that happened with the Collector Costanero in San Miguel. Another example concerns the only pre-treated wastewater which is pumped from the Taboada treatment plant into the Humboldt Current. The discharge of the wastewater might currently create an invisible environmental pollution, which could even worsen in the future due to constant accumulation.
De hecho, las municipalidades en Perú han pasado por una crisis financiera muy fuerte, ¿no? No había, donde el sector que más se ha sacrificado es el mantenimiento de los servicios públicos, ¿no? Hemos tenido grandes problemas en la gestión de residuos sólidos, hemos tenido, a ver, recojo solamente, ni siquiera para el tratamiento. Hemos tenido problemas para el mantenimiento de las áreas verdes, ¿no? Que es el tema que tú planteas. Y esta apertura del año 93, la nueva constitución, la inclusión de estos principios de economía de mercado, dieron la posibilidad de incluir ciertas privatizaciones.
Realized. Water company. Land use, my business. Yeah, risk is theirs, not mine. Dealing with licenses to public to construction, that's another one, that's not mine, you know. So the disconnection between the offices and the disintegration of the management of the city, it's highly related to the sectoralization of the government and the intrusion of the central government into the management of the city. And the central government is sectoralized. Water, land use, risk. You know, everything is separate. And they don't coordinate.
While some injustices are tangible, most of them are invisible due to the city's fragmentation. It is therefore necessary to look at the city's metabolism to understand why they seem to persist. The constant displacement of socio-environmental problems requires a need for a transition that would consider alternatives. Since without environmental integration in institutional and everyday practices, the current socio-political construction of the environment will feed into the same vicious cycle of injustices. Despite our illustration of how the Costa Verde pushes injustices along the coast towards Callao, isolated instances of resistance challenging the dominant neoliberal and hegemonic environmental discourses do exist within the context of Metropolitan Lima and along the Costa Verde specifically. In terms of civil society resistance, the strongest pockets are found in Barranco, as a direct consequence of geographies of hope and despair. Neighbor associations have, for instance, challenged the appropriation of public space and the building of private property along the coast by organizing several peaceful and festive events. By manifesting their disapproval in an entertaining way, some organizers hope to capture the public attention and engage more residents in their cause. In La Perla and San Miguel, we recognize that other social organizations exist, such as the Defense of the Sea, which prevented the opening of the collector in La Perla. But these actors are much less organized. Due to the campaign by the public authorities about the benefits of the Costa Verde project, and due also to the lack of public communication, residents might lack a broader and long-term perspective of the potential negative consequences that Costa Verde could bring. As a result, pockets of resistance are much more localized and disconnected from each other. According to the president of Cretamar, a regional coordination center which defends people from the contamination of mining, especially in the ocean and water, very few organizations exist in Callao. There appear to be a few environmental NGOs operating in Lima. According to Loop, a local NGO working in recycling programs and beach cleaning activities, this is due to financing being allocated mainly to wildlife protection in the countryside. Complementary to these civil society movements, alternate visions within the environmental sphere also exist to challenge the current hegemonic development of the city. Internationally funded projects, such as Lima and Switch, have set in motion the process of change through the increasing prominence of the proposal to reuse wastewater. Metropolitan is building 2 wastewater treatment plants with a view to reusing wastewater in La Atajea and Santa Clara. Metropolitan also promoted the reuse of effluent for agricultural applications in the new wastewater treatment plant that was built in the Manche district in 2009. While embryonic, these initiatives consist of stepping stones towards a change in environmental discourse and perception. Another indicator is the creation of the Ministry of Environment in 2008 and the laws and regulations protecting the environment that it passed. One example is the new regulation that passed in July 2008 for the reuse of wastewater. It is important to note that the ministry is still developing new standards and regulations for environmental protection, which reflects the ongoing nature of this endeavor. The major drawback here is that these regulations are often not enforced properly, such as the fining of mining companies who dump waste into the Rio Remac. In order to consolidate these alternatives for change, our research provides a holistic analysis of the coastal development processes taking place in Lima Metropolitan. Through substantial contextualization of the forces that drive the development of the city, our research grounds and explains the production and reproduction of injustices. The prevailing environmental discourses and the primacy of economic interest are shaping the development of Lima, which evidently follows a neoliberal path. Through the empirical identification of neoliberal development's limits and flaws, such as the socio-political fragmentation leading to an unequal right to the city, our research is attempting to challenge and question its course. Furthermore, there is a need to raise awareness about the key issues emerging from our analysis, namely the spatial and social fragmentation of the city, the socio-environmental consequences of the development path that it follows, and the overall risk blindness that threatens the safety of the residents who live along the coast. The outcome of our awareness-raising strategy is the creation of an online participatory platform for change, Turning to the Sea, which has 2 main objectives. Firstly, by sharing our findings and materials, reports, maps, and videos, we intend to make visible our outcomes and to invite academics, civil society, residents and associations, and all interested actors to participate, express their views, and contribute to the analysis. If public authorities were to be involved, it would also be an innovative way to reduce fragmentation and to strengthen civic participation. Secondly, the online platform builds on the existing pockets of resistance, which are currently too localized and disconnected, with the intention of enhancing their visibility and accelerating the process of reappropriation of the city. Creating a space for dialogue can promote the general understanding of Lima's development. The first steps towards achieving this is to connect the actors who are advocating for change. Our website, therefore, documents all the actors whom we have interviewed and encountered, with a link to their own pages or a presentation of their activities. This project is just a beginning on the path towards positive transformation that would benefit Lima's citizens. Existing as a platform for change, it now needs people's involvement and embodiment to progress and make a difference. Spread the word, take action, engage.